Hello and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that did all of Steve McQueen's stunts in The Great Escape. My name is Cody. Say, would you like to build a quilt? Well, anyway, there's this game called Patchwork, all about building quilts from Mayfair Games. In Patchwork from Mayfair Games, two players are going to attempt to build the best quilt. Now what you're going to do is place kind of a trackboard in the center of the table, and surrounding that trackboard, you're going to place a number of kind of puzzle pieces, of quilt pieces, that kind of look like various Tetris kind of shapes. Now what you're going to do is, each player also has a marker on the trackboard. Now, somewhere around the periphery of those Tetris pieces is kind of a marker that's going to state that you can only choose from the three pieces in front of it. Now, on your turn, you have two options. First of all, you can choose to take one of those three quilt pieces that is in front of the marker and place it somewhere on your own quilt player board. If you do that, you have to pay the cost in buttons, and you have to move your piece along the track that number of units of time. So you have two kinds of currencies in the game, buttons and time. And buttons and time are how you are going to build your quilt. Second, if you are behind the other player along the time trackboard, you can choose to move up a number of spaces so you're just ahead of that other player, and you gain one button for each space that you moved. Then your turn is over. Now, when you take these various Tetris-like pieces from the circle around the track and you place them on your board, you're trying to fill up as much space on your quilt board as possible. You're going to go ahead and fit these shapes in there, and like I say, in kind of like a Tetris fashion, and your goal is to fill all of the space. Now, you're working to fit these shapes together on a 9x9 grid, but if ever you can completely fill in a 7x7 grid, you receive a special token that's worth 7 buttons at the end of the game. Also, at certain points along the track, you're going to run into special patches that are only one square that you can put anywhere on the board. That's the only time you can put a one square on there. You can't get any from the pieces around the track. You can only get them from these special spaces on the track. Also, there are button spaces on the track, and when you pass those, you do scoring. Now, you're going to create big buttons on your quilt. Now, you can add up the number of big buttons you've got on the quilt, and then you can take that number of buttons as well. The game ends when both players have made it to the very center of the time track, and then scoring begins. In order to score the game, you count up all of the buttons you have, including that special 7x7 token, which is worth 7 buttons. And then what you're going to do is subtract 2 points for every empty space you have left on your quilt. So you're really going to want to fill up all of the spaces on the quilt. Patchwork comes to us from prolific German board game designer Uwe Rosenberg, and he's the fellow who brought us Agricola, Caverna, but this is a very different game. So in this game, you're trying to build this quilt by using these Tetris shapes, but you only have limited options each turn. So the game kind of forces you to do what you can with the limited options you have. Not only that, but you know every time you want to grab something, it's going to cost you buttons, it's going to cost you time. You may come to a point where you've got some great options in front of you, but you can't afford the cost in buttons. So you just have to go ahead and pass and collect buttons and hope that the other player passes or doesn't select one of the things you're going to select either. I've got to tell you, the idea of a game about making a quilt just did not appeal to me. I'm a dude. It doesn't. I don't think of that as being very much fun. And yet, what I found is when I played this game, which is a fairly quick game, plays in about 20 minutes or so. What I found is, once I started playing, you really do get into it. It really does become a competition, and there are those choices that are the mark of any good game. How can I best spend my resources in order to achieve the kind of victory that I think I can make? And do I go for the big score, the big haul, or do I adopt a more prudent strategy and simply just try to cover up as much space as I can? It's a very interesting game. There are a few little potential problems here and there you can run into. It's easy to run out of time and space if you're not careful, so you really do need to maximize what you can put on the board every turn. So I enjoyed this game. Like I said, the theme didn't thrill me, but I enjoyed the game mechanically. I thought it was fun for being a light two-player game for what it was. And again, it's a very brief game, maybe 20 minutes or so. So my friend Darren actually said he thought this would be a great game to play with his mother. I guess she likes to make quilts. But if that theme appeals to you, or if you just like the idea of a good two-player, light, fast game where it's got some depth to it, but not so much that it's going to take, an hour, hour and a half, you might want to look at Patchwork. The recommendation for the discriminating gamer is, if you think that's something you'd like, then go ahead and buy it, because you'll get a kick out of it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on thediscriminatinggamer.com, or on our Facebook page. Please, please, please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And after Mayfair Game put out this game, I suppose they could call themselves Quilton Bradley. Quilton. It's a play on Milton Bradley. They make games. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. One.
Oh, please, sir. Oh, why am I doing that? I'm doing it to camera. Sorry.
I know. That's all good.
Oh, please.